A very warm welcome to this Compendium taster video. My name's Claire Agata and I'm the founder of Scopism. In the 2025 SIAM Body of Knowledge refresh, we added Compendiums, which are new, short publications that look at emerging topics in the SIAM space and allow us to look at how they might affect SIAM adoption around the world. In this video, you will hear from some of the contributors to the compendium, a little bit more about the details. After you've watched the video, you can then download the compendium in the community, and in each document, you'll find a feedback link. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please do use the link and complete the short survey. Enjoy the video.
Hi everybody and welcome to one of our compendium series. Today we're lucky enough to be talking with one of the contributors, or in fact the key architect or author for the Compendium for ISO and International Standards. So I'll welcome Dolf to the stage and allow him to introduce himself.
Thank you, Michelle, and hello to everyone as well. I'm Dolf van der Haven. I'm based in the Netherlands, and I have been the lead author of the compendium about SIAM and ISO standards. In my day job, I deal with ISO standards, mostly the ones dealing with quality and information security. And I'm also a member of the ISO committee that develops the ISO 20000 series of standards, which deal with service management.
Wonderful. Thanks for the intro, Dolf. And it's great to have you here to tell us firsthand all about this new compendium that we're super excited about. But before I go into the details of what that looks and feels like, could I ask you a little bit about the process that you went through? So I know that you've had a small team of contributors. Can you tell us a little bit about how that process worked?
Yeah, it was actually much easier than I anticipated. I mean, being a lead author, it seems a lot of pressure, but it is not really a lot of pressure when you work with people who are willing to collaborate with you. So I had two ladies, Katarina Radner from Austria and Lakshmi Priya from India, who were my co-authors on this compendium. And we basically just had a kick-off call. We had one or two follow-up calls, and then we collaborated on email, which was a very smooth process because, I mean, everybody has their own specific background, their own specific expertise, and could independently contribute to the compendium, which all three of us did, and that eventually resulted in a compendium that made sense, I think, and that was a unity as well.
Fantastic. It's always great to have really good, solid teammates. So yeah, I'm sure that was a really helpful part of the whole process.
Absolutely.
If we can now, let me sort of take you into why you think that it was relevant at this time to have a compendium that was dedicated to international standards and its sort of connection to SIAM. Can you share a little bit more about why you thought this was something that we should be doing within this 25 refresh?
Right. I think like previous versions of the body of knowledge of SIAM have already called out some ISO standards in the texts, but there's so many out there right now, and constantly new ones come up with new developments in the world, that it made sense to focus on more of them in the first place. But also, I do think there is an increasing need to talk about the same thing. To talk about, say, a concept like service management, or even more specifically change management, in a way that is standardized. I mean, SIAM is a more or less proprietary body of knowledge, just like ISO is a proprietary framework. And I mean, if you don't talk about the same thing across different frameworks that overlap, that can be used jointly, then you might be talking about different things eventually. And ISO standards help talking about the same thing globally. across frameworks independently of where those frameworks come from. And that's why I think standards are important, just to set that baseline.
Yeah, I think that's really good guidance. And for those of you who are listening who are not familiar with standards, it's a really great starting point for so many different areas. Of course, the international standards cover lots and lots of information well beyond SIAM. There's standards for making tea, for goodness sake. So if you're not familiar with them, then you can certainly check in and see what's available. But yeah, thanks for that, Dolf. And I know you're heavily invested in standards and I've got plenty of experience, which was fantastic for us, of course. I wonder if I can take you through and talk a little bit more about the structure. So the document that you've produced with the team, what does it look like? What could I hope to find within that?
Okay, there's probably just basically 3 parts to the compendium. One part talks about the need to use a similar language, which is similar to what I just talked about needing a baseline to talk about things like incident management, change management, supplier management for that matter, across different environments, across different frameworks. So that is a part that really tells you, okay, we need a common language, because if you don't have a common language, you cannot communicate about things. Then the second part of the compendium really runs across, I forget how many, but like 10 or 12 different standards that are out there that are relevant for SIAM. And maybe I should highlight a handful of them. There's obviously, well, I'm a member of the ISO 20000 committee, so therefore ISO 20000 is mentioned there. I mean, ISO 20000 Part 1, as we call it, is the international standard for service management. So around a set of about 250 or so requirements in that standard, you can build your service management environment or service management system, as we call it in ISO terminology. And a SIAM environment is essentially a service management environment as well. It just uses an additional level of control for the multiple suppliers that are being used in your service management system. So that is 20000 Part 1, and then your favorite, Michelle, because you helped develop it, or even led the development of it, is 20000 Part 14, which is about 20000, the standard, and SIAM specifically. So it really correlates what is in the SIAM body of knowledge, the whole SIAM methodology, with the more or less vanilla service management system that is described in Part 1 of the series. And then there's others in there. I mean, the well-known ISO 9001 about quality management, 27001 about information security management, but also a brand new one, which is ISO 42001, which is about artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence is not only a hype nowadays, but it is a real development in the world, and nobody can avoid using artificial intelligence nowadays anymore. Whether it's consciously or unconsciously, it is out there. It is out there to help us, and it has also been standardized nowadays, and it can be used in services and in a service environment such as SIAM as well. So those are just a handful of the standards that we describe in this compendium, which was Part 2 actually of the compendium. And then there's the third part, which is really a practical example. And this practical example is about a real life company that already used a SIAM infrastructure, if I can call it that. But they had some issues with consistency of the services delivered, communication between the various service providers. And they then started using ISO 20000 to solve some of those issues. And they did it successfully, and that story is the third part of the compendium.
Thanks, Dolf. That's a really
You're welcome.
good sort of navigation through the book. And of course, it goes without saying, I think one of the benefits here is the fact that not only is the compendium providing that information around standards for people who are not familiar with which standards are appropriate or apply, but also that practical sense. I think people absolutely love that real world theory or real world practical experience. And as you say, being able to reflect something that happened in an organization, applying the standard and getting the benefits from it is something that people will really appreciate, I think. I wonder if I can ask you a little bit more about your team members, because I know in particular you had a team, they took on different roles, but in particular your two co-authors, Katharina and Lakshmi.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what they brought to the party, if you will.
Yeah, well, they both had completely different background, completely different background from myself primarily, because my background is in a large telecommunications company, ICT company, if you like. So that is my frame of reference for services as well. But then Katharina Ratner from Austria came from a much smaller organization and had a different creativity to herself, which is why she came up with, okay, I mean, what would I want to contribute to a compendium like this? And then she came up with the communication part of the compendium. Similarly, so Lakshmi comes from an organization that is a bit larger again, is also focusing on IT services. But with her background, she fortunately, and I was a bit worried when we started the compendium, like, okay, can we come up with practical examples here? I mean, is there any organization that use SIAM and ISO standards in tandem? And fortunately, Lakshmi comes from an organization that actually did that with one of their customers and was able to provide this practical example. And together, I think, as you said, we came up with a compendium that is well-rounded and provides information both from a theoretical perspective and from a practical perspective, which hopefully benefits the users of the compendium.
Absolutely. No, that sounds fantastic. And it's, as we said before, it's great to get those ranges of experience, different organizations, different part of the world, all contributing. And I think that's the real value here.
Absolutely.
That's a really great overview, Dolf. So I appreciate that. I'm sure having heard a bit more of the detail, readers are going to be looking forward to grabbing hold of the documentation, taking a look, and really getting into the detail of what you've provided there. So thanks to yourself and the team.
It was a great experience doing this.
That's fantastic. I'm really glad. I'm actually going to ask you to give some words of advice and experience shortly, because what we want and what we need, of course, is people with a range of experiences to bring those to the table so that we can benefit from them all. So what next? I mean, I think for everybody who's listening to the call, you're probably wondering, can I get hold of this guidance? And of course you can. Our sort of call to action is do that. So there's going to be a QR code that will appear on the screen, and that's your invite to let us know, what do you think? Read the book, read the guidance, tell us what you think about it. Are there things that you think we could improve? Tell us about your experiences. What can you bring to the party? So, these are collaborations through through the community, through people who are working within the industry, and it's the benefit of those that expertise. And we're always growing and learning constantly. So it is a call to action to say, go and read it. It's free to download. But we'd love your feedback. We'd love to be able to learn and to improve all of the time. So Dolf, you said that it was a great experience for you. How would you, or what would you say to people who are sort of sitting in the background, listening, maybe doing some reading now and thinking, Oh, yeah, I probably could get involved, but I'm not sure. I'm not confident. Some words of encouragement, please, if you will.
I mean, I think, well, for myself at least, it's been a little bit of a threshold to step into the SIAM world in the first place, which is not where my main background is. I mean, I know SIAM theoretically, but I'm far from a specialist. And then being asked to contribute on actually not one, but two compendiums, to be honest, was a bit of a challenge for me. But I mean, once you're across the threshold and you start to know the people that you're working with, and it turns out that those people are enthusiastic as well, and they are willing to share their knowledge with the world, basically. Then very quickly you come to a mode of collaboration that is just very smooth, very natural. And I mean, you're working with other people, so you can communicate with them and you can come to easy agreements on what a compendium in this case should look like. And then it just rolls, and eventually it ends up being published, and indeed people can read the compendium. And we're not perfect, of course, so indeed all feedback is welcome to this compendium, so that in the next iteration we can improve on it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dolf. That's fantastic. And hopefully it gives people insight that, as you say, we're not seeking perfection. It's collaboration. It's about people bringing new ideas and, their experiences to the table. And that's what it's all about. So that's probably a timely point to bring us to the end of this session. Thank you, Dolf, for contributing and telling us a little bit more about the compendium. So that all remains for me to say is a really big thank you for all your efforts and your enthusiasm to Dolf and the whole team. Dolf, if you've got any final thoughts or words as well, that would be lovely.
Just also on my behalf, very great thanks to the team, to both authors and the reviewers that were contributing to the success of this compendium.